Her ex-boyfriend invited her to his wedding to put her in her place. He had his fiancée send the invitation personally, cream envelope, embossed seal, hand-delivered to her office like a trophy. But on the day of that wedding, Maya Carter did not walk in alone. She came with a Korean billionaire, a convoy, and an emerald green dress that made the entire ballroom forget what it was doing. If this story already has you feeling some type of way, you know exactly what to do. And if you're just finding our channel, welcome. Smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Because on Entangled in Seoul, we bring you the best stories with the best twists and turns, and we never disappoint. Drop a comment and tell us where in the world you're watching from. You just might spot your neighbor down in the comments. But to really understand how Maya Carter got herself to that moment, we have to go back to where it all started. And I mean all the way back, because this woman's story did not begin in Seoul. It began in a beautiful house in Los Angeles that was hiding something ugly behind every perfect wall. Maya grew up in Baldwin Hills, one of the most affluent black neighborhoods in Los Angeles. The house her parents owned on Cloverdale Avenue was stunning mid-century architecture, manicured hedges, the kind of home that made neighbors slow their cars just to look at it. From the outside, the Carter family looked like everything. Her mother, Olivia, ran a successful interior design firm. Her father, Nolan, was a corporate attorney, Afro-Latino, broad-shouldered, with a laugh that could fill a courtroom and a charm that could empty a woman's better judgment. He was the kind of man who made every room feel like a celebration just by walking into it. Maya adored him. She was his girl. He called her his little lawyer, and she believed with the full, uncomplicated faith of a child that her family was solid. She was 12 years old when she started to understand that it was not. It was never one big moment. It was small things. The way her father's phone would buzz at dinner, and his eyes would shift before he silenced it. The way her mother would laugh a little too brightly at parties, holding her wine glass just a little too tightly. The way Olivia retouched her makeup at 11 o'clock at night when Nolan still hadn't come home. Maya was 12, but she was sharp. She filed everything away. By 13, she had stopped asking where her father was in the evenings. She already knew. She had taught herself to know things by watching people's hands, their eyes, the small involuntary movements that happen when someone is lying, and has become so practiced at it, they no longer notice their own tells. Her father was a serial cheater. Not once, not twice, consistently, unapologetically, across years. And her mother, elegant, brilliant Olivia, had chosen to hold the family together rather than blow it apart. She smoothed her hair. She set beautiful tables. She hosted dinner parties where she laughed at the right moments and held her husband's arm and looked like a woman who had everything. Maya watched her mother perform that role for years, and she learned, without being told, that loving the wrong person could cost a woman everything she had built: her money, her peace, her pride, and still leave her standing at a party table pretending she was fine. She decided at 13 years old that she would never be that woman. The divorce came when Maya was 16, and it was not quiet. Nolan Carter's double life unraveled in the specific, catastrophic way that only happens when a man has been juggling too many lies for too long and finally runs out of hands. There were other women. There were hidden accounts. There was a parallel financial life that had been bleeding the family dry for years while Nolan maintained the beautiful house and the beautiful image. Olivia walked away with significantly less than she deserved. The legal battle was public enough that their Baldwin Hills neighbors knew every detail. The dinner party invitations stopped coming. The women who had smiled at Olivia across catered tables found reasons not to return her calls. Maya watched her mother rebuild her face every single morning, watched her choose the right lipstick, watched her straighten her spine before she opened the front door, because the neighborhood was watching, and Olivia Carter had not survived this much to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her fall apart. That morning ritual taught Maya more than any book ever would. You don't break where anyone can see you, you stand straight, and then you go build something they cannot touch. Then came the year Maya turned 17. Her father's leveraged investments to the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the entire architecture of financial fraud he had been constructing for a decade collapsed under a federal investigation. Nolan Carter, charming to the absolute last, was sentenced and sent to federal prison. Maya did not go to the sentencing. She sat in the school library instead and finished a research paper on forensic accounting fraud detection. She got an A. 3 weeks later, Olivia packed their lives into a U-Haul and moved them to a small, quiet town in Nebraska where her sister lived. Somewhere no one knew the name Carter. Somewhere the scandal could not follow them. Maya sat in the passenger seat and watched Los Angeles disappear in the side mirror. She made herself one promise. This is the lowest point. The only direction from here is up. She was right, but she had no idea yet how far she would have to climb or how much she would have to lose again before she finally arrived. Maya threw herself into international corporate law and forensic accounting with the focused intensity of someone who has decided that excellence is the only revenge worth having. She was relentless. Her professors noticed. Her peers noticed. By the time a ultra-competitive global fellowship opened at a top-tier firm in South Korea, Maya's name was at the top of every shortlist. She grabbed it without hesitation. She did not care how far away it was. She wanted a stage big enough to rewrite her story. Stepping out of Incheon International Airport on a September morning, Seoul hit her like a wall of organized, neon-lit, hyper-efficient noise. The crowds moved with a precision that made her feel slow just standing still on the pavement with her 2 bags and her carry-on. She had expected foreign. She had prepared for foreign. She had spent months reading about Korean corporate culture, studying the language basics, memorizing subway maps on her laptop until her eyes blurred. What she had not prepared for was the specific, heavy feeling of standing in the middle of something enormous that did not know she existed and did not need to. She picked up her bags. She found her transport. She pressed her hand against the window of the bus and watched Seoul move past her in the early evening light and said to herself quietly, "Okay, this is where you are now. This is what you chose. Make it work." The first 6 months were the hardest things she had done since Nebraska. In the glass tower offices of the firm's Gangnam branch, Maya was visible in ways that had nothing to do with her performance. She was tall, she was black, her protective braids, her natural halo, her American passport, all of it drew the kind of open, fascinated attention that felt nothing like a compliment. The stares in the elevator, the micro pause in a colleague's expression when she walked into a conference room. Not hostile exactly, just adjusting. The specific adjustment of people recalibrating because the variable in front of them does not match the template they built their expectations on. Maya cataloged every single one of those moments. She used none of them as permission to slow down. At night in her minimalist apartment in Mipogu, she ate convenience store ramyeon and studied Korean corporate tax code until 2 in the morning. She called her mother every Sunday. She kept her voice steady. "Are you eating?" Olivia asked every single week without fail. "I'm eating, Mom. Are you happy?" Maya looked at her apartment ceiling, the desk buried under case files, the Seoul skyline through her window, foreign and enormous and relentlessly indifferent. "I'm getting there," she said. It was not a lie. It was a promise she was making to herself in real time. By the end of her first year, she wasn't just surviving Seoul. She was beginning to decode it. The unspoken social hierarchy, the corporate politics of face-saving, the specific way a proposal landed differently depending on who introduced it and how. The hidden currents running beneath the polished surface of this city. Maya had always been exceptional at reading hidden currents. Her father had taught her that without meaning to. She became quietly and completely someone to watch. She met him at a cross-border compliance seminar in the spring of her second year. Kenji Yamamoto Park entered a room the way certain men do, like the room had been waiting for him. Korean Japanese, from a dynasty with interests in logistics, shipping, and 3 other industries, Maya cataloged within 20 minutes of their first conversation. He had a precision-cut suit, a mind that moved fast, and the specific confidence of a man who had never once questioned whether he deserved to be in the room he was standing in. They were seated at the same breakout table. He made a sharp, contrarian comment about the moderator's analysis. Maya waited until he finished. Then she quietly and methodically dismantled the one variable he had miscalculated. He stared at her for 3 full seconds. Then he laughed. A real one, not a performance. "You're right," he said. "Where did you train?" Besties. That was how it started. For 2 years, Kenji was everything Maya's pragmatism had warned her against and everything her loneliness had quietly been starving for. He was brilliant in the way she respected most. Not just intelligent, but strategic. He could see 12 moves ahead in a corporate chess game. And when they were alone, he was disarmingly honest about the weight of carrying a dynasty on his shoulders. She let her guard down. She had been so careful for so long, and she was tired, and he felt like the one space where she did not have to be armored. She helped him. More than anyone would ever fully know. Late nights restructuring his family's offshore accounts, finding the compliance gaps that could have become catastrophic, quietly strengthening the financial architecture of his position within the conglomerate. She did it because she loved the work. She did it because she trusted him. She did it because she had spent her whole life watching her mother pour herself into the wrong person. And somehow, despite everything she had seen, she had walked right into the same room. One night, documents spread across his dining table, both of them running on coffee and momentum. Kenji reached across and covered her hand with his. "You are the reason this works," he said. "I want you to know that." She looked at him. He looked sincere. He looked, she would later think, exactly like her father had looked at her mother across 1,000 dinner party tables. She missed the warning completely. The end came on a Thursday evening in March. Same restaurant as their third date. Same bottle of wine. Kenji sat across from her with his hands folded and his eyes slightly averted and told her, with practiced, calibrated gentleness, that his family had certain expectations. That building the legacy he was building required a specific kind of partner. That he hoped she understood. This had nothing to do with her personally. Maya sat very still. She looked at him the way she looked at a corporate filing when she had just found the buried liability on page 32. Clean, clinical, precise. "You used my work to secure your position," she said quietly. "And now that you're secure, you've decided I'm inconvenient." "That's not—" "Don't," she said. "I understand exactly what this is." She picked up her bag. She stood. She looked at him one final time with an expression that was not hatred and not heartbreak, but something quieter and far more permanent than either. "Goodbye, Kenji." She walked out of the restaurant into the Seoul night. She let herself feel exactly what she felt for the 12-minute walk home. Then she unlocked her door, sat at her desk, opened her laptop, and went back to work. 3 months after that dinner, the invitation arrived. Not a message, not an email. A physical envelope, cream, heavy stock, embossed seal hand-delivered to her office and sitting against her coffee mug like it owned the space. "Park Kenji and Shin Ji-woo request the honor of your presence at their wedding celebration. The Grand Pavilion, Han River Terrace." Maya's assistant, Ji-yeon, hovered near the door with the specific tension of someone who already knew what was inside and was bracing for impact. Maya set the invitation flat on her desk. She sat down. She looked at the Seoul skyline through her floor-to-ceiling window for exactly 45 seconds. Then she picked up her pen and went back to work. "Now, besties, I need you to understand something." A lesser woman would have cried. A lesser woman would have called her friends, eaten ice cream, and spent a week in her feelings. Maya Carter filed it away. And she started to think. 6 days after the envelope arrived, Maya's firm was retained to oversee a full compliance audit for a venture capital group preparing to acquire a significant stake in the Yamamoto Park logistics empire, Kenji's family's empire, the one Maya had spent 2 years quietly fortifying from the inside. She sat with that information for 60 seconds. Then she requested the lead position on the audit. Her supervisor approved it the same afternoon. He was a wise man who knew better than to ask questions when Maya used that particular tone. That was how she met Min Dae-hyun. She had reviewed his file before their first meeting. 39 years old, self-made tech billionaire. He had built 3 software platforms from nothing that had restructured how logistics companies across Southeast Asia manage regulatory compliance. He was one of the acquisition group's principals. He took no meetings he had not personally cleared. He was, by every account available, a difficult man to be in a room with. He was already seated when she arrived. He did not stand. He looked up from a document he was annotating and assessed her with the specific stillness of someone deciding whether a new variable changes their model. "You're the forensic lead," he said. "Yes." "You know the Yamamoto Park accounts?" Not a question. He had done his research. "I know the accounts," Maya confirmed. She set her files on the table with the settled weight of someone who is not going to apologize for knowing what she knows. A moment passed between them. The kind of moment that happens when 2 people of equal intelligence encounter each other for the first time and are each quietly recalibrating. "Show me the offshore structure," Dae-hyun said. She showed him. What happened over the following 3 weeks was the first genuinely equal collaboration Maya had experienced since arriving in Korea. Dae-hyun was not charming in any conventional sense. He did not perform warmth. He did not manufacture rapport. He was simply, completely present, the kind of person who listened with his whole attention, pushed back on weak points without cruelty, and acknowledged strong points without flattery. He worked the same hours she did. He forgot to eat at the same intervals she did. He had a habit of arranging documents in a specific spatial pattern when he was deep in thought. She had a habit of writing key numbers in red in her margins. They were 4 days in before either of them noticed the other's system. "You write everything in red," he said one evening, glancing at her annotated printout. "You stack primary documents on the left," she replied, not looking up. "Every single time." A pause. "Left brain processes primary logic," he said. "Red increases cognitive alertness," she said. Another pause, and then quietly, a short sound came from him. Surprised, genuine, like he had not planned to laugh and it had happened anyway. Maya looked up. He was already looking back at his work, but the line of his shoulders had loosened. She went back to her files. But something in the room had shifted, and both of them felt it. And neither of them said so, because they were both, at their core, people who waited for things to earn their names before they named them. By the end of week 3, the picture was complete. Beneath the polished surface of the Yamamoto Park financial structure, Maya had found exactly what she had known how to look for. A cluster of offshore holding accounts restructured in the months after her departure. Technically legal, operationally designed to obscure liability. The kind of architecture that looks clean until someone who knows what they're looking for comes along. Maya knew exactly what she was looking for. She had helped build the original structure. She knew every room in that house. She laid the findings in front of Dae-hyun on a Friday afternoon. He studied the documentation for a long time. "The wedding is in 10 days, he said finally. Maya said nothing. She did not need to. Dae-hyun looked at her. "Were you invited?" "Yes." The word landed in the room like a card placed face up on a table. He looked at her face not the way most men looked at her face, with assessment or doubt, but with the same quality of attention he applied to everything that mattered to him. Even. Searching. Wanting the truth of the thing. "Then we should go," he said. Maya looked at him. "As colleagues attending a social function," he added, deadpan, "where we happen to be in possession of relevant information." Maya was quiet for one beat. 2. "I'll need to find a dress," she said. The corner of his mouth moved. Just slightly. "Make it something they'll remember," he said. She found it on a Tuesday at a boutique in Cheongdam-dong that a colleague had mentioned once in passing, and Maya had filed away because Maya filed everything away. Emerald green, heavy silk, a structured bodice and a skirt that moved with the deliberate, unhurried authority of fabric that understood its own weight. It was not a dress that requested attention. It commanded it. The seamstress, a small, precise woman in her 60s who communicated primarily through critical assessment, walked around Maya twice and said something in Korean. Ji-yeon, who had come along, translated with barely contained delight. "She says you wear clothes like you're making a statement to them." Maya looked at herself in the three-way mirror. The emerald against her deep brown skin was something else entirely. The color didn't sit on her. It responded to her, like a frequency finding its match. "Tell her I'll take it," Maya said. The evening before the wedding, Dae-hyun called. Not a message, a call. Maya picked up on the second ring. "Are you prepared?" he asked. Simple question. From anyone else, patronizing. From Dae-hyun, it was exactly what it appeared to be, a direct question requiring an honest answer. "Yes," Maya said. She was sitting at her desk in the dark, soul bright through her window. "Are you?" "I've been preparing for 3 weeks," he said. "So have I," she replied. Silence settled between them, the comfortable kind. The kind that exists between people who have stopped needing to fill every space with words. Then, quieter. "Maya." His voice shifted into a register she had started to recognize. The one he used when he was saying something true rather than something strategic. "Whatever happens tomorrow, you've already won. You understand that?" She looked at the skyline, the city that had collided with her at the airport, the city she had spent years learning to read. "I know," she said, "but I want him to understand it too." She heard something that was almost a laugh on his end. Spare, genuine. "Then we'll make sure he does," Dae-hyun said. The Grand Pavilion of the Han River Hotel was the kind of venue that required a performance from everyone who entered it. Vaulted ceilings, warm amber light, floor-to-ceiling windows with the Han River stretching beyond them, its surface layered with the reflections of a city that never fully slept. The guest list was Seoul's corporate and political elite foundation boards, government advisory committees, the names that appeared on the financial pages of every serious publication in the country. The wedding ceremony had finished an hour before the reception opened. By the time Maya and Dae-hyun arrived, the ballroom was at full pressure, voices, music, and the particular high-frequency hum of powerful people performing for each other. They stepped out of the car together. Maya took one breath of cool river air. She felt the weight of the silk, the height of her heels on the pavement, the steadiness in her chest that had nothing to do with calm and everything to do with certainty. Dae-hyun offered his arm. She took it. The double doors of the grand pavilion opened. Besties. I need you to picture this. Maya Carter walked into that ballroom like she had designed the building herself. The emerald dress moved with her. Her hair was pinned in an elaborate updo that left her neck and shoulders bare. One gold cuff on her right wrist, no other jewelry. She did not scan the room. She did not search faces. She walked with the full, grounded presence of a woman who does not need a room to validate her arrival. Beside her, Min Dae-hyun's dark suit contained authority, the posture of a man who is the most important person in any room he enters, and has never once felt the need to announce it. His hand rested at the small of her back. Light, steady, declarative. The conversation in that ballroom did not die all at once. It was a cascade. One cluster of guests going quiet, then another, the stillness spreading outward from the doors like a wave moving through still water. Kenji was near the far end of the ballroom, glass in hand, surrounded by business acquaintances, looking exactly as smug as Maya had anticipated. She tracked him in her peripheral vision without letting her gaze land on him. She knew the exact moment he saw her, because she saw the glass stop moving halfway to his mouth. She did not look at him. Not yet. She accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. She spoke quietly with Dae-hyun, a dry comment about the room's sightlines, a low observation about the artwork on the far wall. Completely natural, completely unhurried, because she was not performing. She was simply there. And that, in itself, was already everything. A senior executive from a steel conglomerate approached Dae-hyun to pay respects, and Maya watched Dae-hyun navigate the interaction with the spare, precise economy she had come to recognize as completely characteristic of him. He introduced her, simply. Miss Carter, my colleague. The executive looked at Maya with clean, genuine assessment. No adjustment, no condescension. The look of someone who has just been told to pay attention. Miss Carter, he said with a small formal bow. Dae-hyun speaks of your work with considerable regard. He's a discerning evaluator, Maya said. I take that seriously. The executive smiled. He moved on. 30 seconds later, Maya saw him lean toward a companion and say something. The companion glanced in her direction with the expression of someone quietly revising their understanding of the room. Good, she thought. Kenji found her on the terrace. She had positioned herself there deliberately after 40 minutes inside, visible enough, private enough for a conversation. She was standing at the railing with her champagne, looking out at the Han River, when she felt his approach from 30 feet away. Maya. His voice was calibrated warm enough to not appear hostile to onlookers, cool enough to signal that he intended to control this interaction. She turned, unhurried. Kenji. Her tone was the professional register she used for arbitration rooms. Congratulations on your marriage. He looked at her, at the dress, at the way she was standing, at the gold cuff catching the light. She watched him recalculate. You came with men, he said, something compressed beneath the surface of his voice. I came with a colleague, Maya said evenly. We had business in the area. She took a slow sip of champagne. How has the restructuring of the Hokkaido holding entities been progressing? I noticed some interesting activity in the Q1 filings. The color shifted in his face. Fractionally. That's a strange topic for a wedding reception. You're right, Maya agreed pleasantly. It's probably more appropriate for the Meridian Capital Acquisition Review, which resumes Monday morning. She watched the implications land one by one. The audit. Dae-hyun. The specific, detailed knowledge she was casually demonstrating that she possessed. She watched him calculate and arrive, right on schedule at the conclusion she had spent 3 weeks preparing for him. Maya, his voice dropped. The warmth evaporated. Whatever you think you found, the Leeward Isle accounts, she said simply. The restructuring in April, after the quarter close. The liability reclassification. She held his gaze without heat, without pleasure, with only the clean, complete steadiness of someone who has verified their findings 17 times and is entirely certain of what they know. The structure isn't technically illegal, but it would not survive regulatory scrutiny comfortably, and Dae-hyun's group has a fiduciary obligation that makes full disclosure mandatory. Kenji's expression moved through shock, calculation, and anger, and landed exactly where she expected it to land. His hand came forward, fingers reaching toward her arm. The gesture powerful men have made for generations when they want to move a woman somewhere quieter. somewhere they can reset the terms of an inconvenient conversation. Maya was already moving. She stepped back. Her right arm came up. The back of her hand connected with his wrist in one clean, decisive motion. Not a slap exactly, more precise than that. A deflection, a refusal. But the sound of it carried across the terrace, crisp and impossible to miss. An elderly couple near the railing turned their heads. Guests visible through the glass doors looked toward the sound. The silence that followed was the specific silence of a moment that everyone present immediately understands is significant. Kenji stood with his hand at his side, his face doing something complicated. Maya looked at him, not with triumph, not with rage, not with the trembling satisfaction of someone who has been waiting for revenge, with something far quieter and more permanent than any of that. "You leveraged my work to build your foundation," she said, clearly, precisely, with the projection of someone who knows which words need to carry. "Then you decided I was expendable once the foundation was solid. You sent me an invitation to watch you celebrate because you believed I would come here broken or not come at all." She held his gaze. "You fundamentally misunderstood who you were dealing with, Kenji. You always did." She stepped toward him, not aggressively, simply with the full authority of her own presence. "Don't reach for me again," she said. "We're done here." She turned, walked back through the glass doors, into the light. The ballroom felt different when she walked back into it, or maybe she was different, and the room was reflecting that back to her. Dae-hyun was exactly where she expected, near the windows with the river view, champagne untouched, his eyes finding her the moment she crossed the threshold. She walked toward him with the same unhurried authority she had walked in with. When she reached him, he looked at her face for one long, quiet moment. He said nothing. He didn't need to. She could see in his expression that he understood exactly what had happened on that terrace, and that he thought she had handled it exactly as it deserved to be handled. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes," she said. They moved through the room properly, Dae-hyun exchanging a brief, formal acknowledgement with a ministry official near the exit, Maya accepting a business card from a private equity partner who had sought her out specifically after her exchange with the steel executive. She tucked the card into her clutch with the quiet, practiced competence of a woman who never wastes a useful thing. Then they were outside. The cool river air hit her skin. The town car was waiting. The city spread in every direction, towers of glass and steel and light that had once looked like someone else's world. Maya stood on the steps of the Grand Pavilion for one extra moment. She had come to Seoul at 28 with 2 suitcases, a forensic accounting certification, and a hunger that had nothing glamorous about it. She had been the girl from Baldwin Hills whose father burned everything down. The girl whose family fled to Nebraska. The girl who arrived in a city that collided with her at the airport and dared her, daily, to give up. She was 33 now. She had not given up. She exhaled slowly. Then she got in the car. Seoul slid past the windows in long strokes of amber and gold. The Han River ran parallel to them for a stretch, its surface dark and slow, carrying the lights of the bridges doubled in its reflection. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. This was normal for them. They had spent 3 weeks in the same rooms for 12-hour stretches and had learned each other's silences the way you learn a colleague's notation system, with attention, without pressure. Maya looked out the window. She was tired in the clean, completed way of someone who has set down something they have been carrying for a very long time. "Are you all right?" Dae-hyun asked. "Yes," she said. "I'm genuinely all right." She felt him looking at her profile. "I've been watching you work for 3 weeks," he said. The way he said it was not observation, it was admission. "The way your mind moves, the way you hold a room without performing it." A pause. "I've spent a long time in rooms with brilliant people. I don't say that to impress you. I say it so you understand the weight of what I mean." Another pause. "You are different, Maya." She turned to look at him. In the low light of the car, his face was stripped of its boardroom configuration, the careful neutrality, the strategic stillness. He looked like the person underneath all of that, a man who was tired, quietly, of the distance he maintained as standard practice. "I built my life around being alone," he said, deliberately, after he stopped. She understood the shape of what he didn't finish. She had read enough about his history to understand that wound without needing its details. "I became very good at not wanting things. I convinced myself it was a strength." The river kept pace beside them. The city continued its indifferent, magnificent sprawl. "And then you put that offshore structure on the table," he said, almost to himself, "and walked me through it like you'd been doing it your whole life. And you pushed back on my analysis in the first meeting without hesitation, because you were right, and you knew you were right, and you didn't need my agreement to act on that. He looked at her, directly, with the same simple, full attention she had been on the receiving end of for 3 weeks. And I thought, this is a real person. This is what I stopped letting myself look for. Maya was quiet. She was not a woman easily moved, but she was moved by precision, by honesty, by the disarming, rare experience of being seen by someone who had absolutely nothing to gain from seeing her clearly. I came to Seoul to prove something, she said. I've been so focused on the proof that I forgot to ask what comes after. What comes after? He asked. She looked out the window. The skyline spread ahead of them as the car curved onto the main highway, every tower lit against the dark, the whole gorgeous, relentless, inhuman scale of it, and her own reflection suspended in the glass. Clear-eyed, straight-backed, no longer a ghost wandering someone else's streets. Something that's actually mine, she said. Dae-hyun reached across the space between them, slowly, without performance. He covered her hand with his. His hand was warm. The touch was not calculated. It was simply the most honest thing he had done all evening. She let it stay. After a moment, she leaned her head against his shoulder. He didn't shift. He settled into it the way someone settles into something they had quietly, almost secretly, been hoping they would get to have. The town car swept forward into the heart of the capital. 12 kilometers away, on the 41st floor of a luxury tower in Apgujeong, Seo-yeon Choi stood at her floor-to-ceiling window with a glass of red wine and the specific stillness of a woman who has just encountered something she was not prepared for. Her tablet was lit on the coffee table behind her. She had been scrolling the high society blogs she monitored as a matter of professional habit. She had not been looking for anything in particular. And then she had stopped scrolling. The photograph was candid, taken by a wedding guest, slightly angled, catching the moment just after the couple arrived at the ballroom. But the image was extraordinary the way accidental photographs sometimes are. The emerald dress catching amber light, the woman inside it carrying herself like she had been born to occupy exactly that much space. And beside her, Min Dae-hyun, with his hand at her back and his eyes. Seo-yeon looked at his eyes in the photograph for a long time. She had spent 2 years since the divorce constructing a story in which Dae-hyun was the one who had lost, who had been hollowed out by the marriage, by the settlement, by her deliberate and strategic social leverage. She had believed that story mostly because the alternative, that she had spent years with a man she never fully understood and had walked away with less than she came in with, in every sense that actually mattered, was not a story she was built to hold. The photograph made that story very difficult to maintain. It was not the woman's presence, formidable as it clearly was. It was not the dress. It was Dae-hyun's face. She had not seen him look like that. In all their years, in every function and boardroom appearance and carefully curated dinner, she had never seen him look like that. Open, warm, standing exactly where he wanted to be, next to exactly the person he wanted to be standing next to, in a room full of performance and pretense, and not performing a single thing. Seo-yeon set her wine glass down very carefully. She opened her contacts. She scrolled past 3 names and then stopped. No, not tonight. Tonight she needed to understand fully what she was dealing with before she moved anything. She stood at the window for a long time, the city bright and vast and entirely unbothered below her. Who is she? Seo-yeon thought. Not as a question, as the first line of a plan. She was, among many things, a woman who was exceptionally good at gathering information about people who had disrupted her carefully ordered world. She began quietly to think. So tell me, besties, did Maya do the right thing, deflecting Kenji's hand and shutting him down in front of everyone at that wedding? And what do you think Seo-yeon is planning now that she's seen those photographs? Tell us in the comments, because we read every single one and we love hearing from you. Also, tell us what you think of this story so far. We pour everything into these, and your feedback means the world to us. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell right now, because more is coming, and trust me, you do not want to miss it. See you there. Entangled in Seoul, where every story is worth the wait.